Hello and welcome to Keep It Classical. Today we're going to talk about the Protestant Reformation and the Roman Catholic Counter Reformation clapback. But how exactly did the Protestant Reformation and the Counter Reformation affect music? Let's get started. The Protestant Reformation changed the course of the socio-economic and political state of Europe and eventually North America. Back in the fall of 2017, we commemorated the 400th anniversary of Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses to the door of a church in Wittenberg, Germany. This was the first major divide in Christianity since the Great Schism of 1054. Take on the most powerful organization in Europe and start a cultural and political revolution? Nailed it. Which reminds me of one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time, which you are absolutely not ready for.
If you having church problems, then don't blame God, son. I got 95 theses, but the Pope ain't one. Listen up, all my people, it's a storm for the town. About the sin and injustice and corruption I've been smelling. I met that holy kettle, then I started rebelling. Once I seen the fat indulgences that he been selling. Now the Catholics of the world straight up disgracing me. Just because I wear my finger at the papacy. My people got riled up over this reformation. That's when Leo threatened me with excommunication.
Seriously, go watch the whole thing. It's amazing. The Protestant Reformation began with Martin Luther, but there are a number of other Protestant movements that followed shortly after Luther's dramatic departure. You had Ulrich Zwingli in Switzerland, King Henry VIII in England, and Jean Calvin. It's John Calvin. Each of them had a different set of complaints with the Catholic Church and with each other, and very different sets of ideas about how music is used in worship. We don't need to go into a great amount of detail, but essentially opinions between these reformers were as varied between the polar opposites of the Bible doesn't go into detail about music and worship, it must not be okay, all the way to the Bible doesn't forbid music and worship, it must be okay. But getting back to Martin Luther, he loved music and felt that not only did it deserve an important place in worship, but basically expanded the idea involving the congregation to participate. Luther is attributed with saying, "The devil has no need of all the good tunes for himself." Luther wanted the congregation to participate through the singing of chorales, in what we now call congregational singing. Let's listen to an example of one of these chorales.
Ein Feste Burg ist unser Gott, ein guter Wehr und Hafen. Hilft uns frei aus aller Not, die uns jetzt hat betroffen. Der Art böse Feind nicht ernst es jetzt meint, groß Macht und viel ist, sein grausam Rüstung ist, auf Welt ist nicht seinesgleichen.
Thanks to the culture of music and singing that Luther encouraged and cultivated in the church, it became fertile ground for dozens of incredible composers who eventually would follow in that tradition, including Johann Sebastian Bach. Not only did the Lutherans foster and encourage congregational singing, but they accepted secular and even progressive and avant-garde elements to be part of their sacred music. Much more on that in a future episode. After all the Protestant movements, the Catholic Church began hemorrhaging membership. Between Lutherans and Calvinists and Zwinglis and the Church of England, the Catholic Church lost control of a huge portion of the European population. As far as tithes and offerings are concerned, that's a big hit to the bottom line. The Catholic Church had to create some sort of response, implement some reforms, and try to win back some of their lost members. The church leaders decided to come together in a brainstorming session now called the Council of Trent. How successful were these efforts? Success was mixed, but it stopped the bleeding. It helped create the Jesuit movement, which focused on proselytizing and education. This helped reconvert almost all of Poland back to Catholicism, and has been responsible for the creation of several institutions of higher learning still around today. On the other hand, it led to the 30 Years' War and wiped out between 25 to 40% of Europe's population. So, it's a mixed bag. And how did it affect the music of the day? The short answer is dramatically. Basically, the leadership had four major problems with the music of the church. First, the leadership had problems with instruments in the church. And I kind of get that. When you've got a terrible instrumentalist, it really hurts and you just wish it wasn't there. This is particularly interesting because the vast majority of music in this time period has no written instrumental parts. This complaint is evidence that there were instruments used in church, and that they were very likely doubling the vocal parts of the music that we've already been looking at. Second, the church had a problem with... I'm going to try and get through this one without laughing. Second, the church had a problem with the disrespectful attitude of the singers. And I mean, has anything really changed? I laugh because this problem has never really been fully resolved or really gone away. It very much depends on the denomination, but if you've ever been involved in the church choir, you know that those musicians can be some of the most irreverent people that you have ever met. Hilarious, but irreverent. Third, the church had a problem with secular music making its way into church music. This might be surprising to hear, but quite a bit of secular music was beginning to creep into music written for the church. Composers would sometimes write a mass based on a popular secular song, meaning that you could hear a song in the tavern on Saturday and then hear the same music with a different text in the church on Sunday. Let me share an example. Here's a chanson by Clemens non Papa called Entrez-vous filles, and then a movement from a mass by Orlando di Lasso that it's based on.
Entrez-vous filles de quinze ans, entrez-vous filles de quinze ans, à la fontaine, venez plus à la fontaine, plus à la fontaine, plus à la fontaine, venez plus à la fontaine, venez plus à la fontaine.
The words are different, but the music is almost the same. Now you might be asking, why is that such a problem? Well, if you look up a translation of the words of the chanson Entrez-vous filles, you'll notice that it's really raunchy. I'm not going to show the words here in this video because I want this video to remain family friendly. The church leadership just didn't want the music to distract them from the worship that they had in mind. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, the church had an issue with the words of the music not being intelligible to the listeners. In many ways, this is a reasonable complaint. Hearing and understanding the words is an important part of edifying the listener. Now you may be thinking, but Matt, how much of a problem could this really be? I mean, it's already tough to understand singers as it is. Well, let's listen to a mass by Flemish composer Brumel, nicknamed the Earthquake Mass. Now, you will see the words on the screen, but see if you can just hear them without looking at the words. So, can you understand the words? Neither can I. It's like listening to Alexis Norman sing the American national anthem.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars at the dawn's early light, whatsoever we strayed, and the twilight still gleaming, and the rise of it red.
Even if you know the words already, it's kind of ridiculous how much Brummel obscures the intelligibility. Is it beautiful? Absolutely. But in fairness, the words are completely lost. And that's what the Council of Trent had a problem with. So, what did they decide to do about these 4 complaints? Well, some of the council came to the conclusion that they should ban instruments from church, including the organ, prohibit professional musicians, ban masses based on secular music, and forbid polyphonic music. Church music, as we have known up to this point, was in real trouble. That's all for now. Next time, we'll talk about the Counter Reformation and the music of the late Renaissance. If you like this video, consider watching one of my other videos about the Renaissance or about the early Christian church. Until next time, keep it classical.